You know, when a doctor hands you a prescription, there's this hidden challenge they're always trying to solve. How do you get the medicine working fast, but without giving you way too much? Well, today, we're diving into the high-wire act of the loading dose, where the line between healing and harm is measured in hours, and sometimes in single milligrams. Have you ever been in a situation where you needed medicine to work immediately? I mean, think about the ER. You've got a dangerous heart rhythm or a seizure that just won't stop. You absolutely cannot afford to wait hours or even days for medicine to slowly build up in your system. You need it working, like, yesterday. And that is the core problem that doctors have to solve in a crisis. So why the delay? Well, it all comes down to something called a drug's half-life. That's basically the time it takes for your body to clear out half of the drug. Now, to get a medicine to its effective level, what's called a steady state, where what you take in perfectly matches what your body gets rid of, you usually have to wait for about 4 or 5 of these half-lives to go by. So if a drug's half-life is 24 hours, you could be waiting almost a week for it to fully kick in. A week. Okay, so to get around this massive time lag, medicine has a really clever shortcut. It's called the loading dose. It is a strategy designed specifically to bypass that slow, tedious buildup and get the drug right into its effective zone, fast. It's really a two-part strategy. First, you get the loading dose. That's the big, one-time, upfront amount designed to quickly jack up the drug concentration to the right level. Then, you switch over to the maintenance dose. These are the smaller, regular amounts that just keep it there. Think of it this way. The loading dose is the giant rocket launch, and the maintenance dose, that's what keeps you in a perfect orbit. The whole goal of this, the entire point, is to hit a very specific target called the therapeutic window. This is the sweet spot. It's the perfect concentration range where a drug is strong enough to actually work, but not so strong that it becomes toxic. If you're too low, it does nothing. If you're too high, it's flat out dangerous. The whole game is about getting into that window and staying right there. Theory is one thing, but let's see how this all plays out in the real world with a really high-stakes example. We're going to take a look at a landmark clinical trial on a drug where getting the dose right isn't just important. It can be a matter of life and death. Okay, so the drug is warfarin. It's a very common blood thinner used to prevent things like strokes. The big challenge with warfarin? It has a razor-thin therapeutic window. I mean, it is tiny. Doctors measure its effect using something called an INR, which you can just think of as a score for how thin your blood is. The target is this narrow little range between 2.0 and 3.0. Go below that and you risk a clot. Go above it and you risk a major life-threatening bleed. It's the ultimate dosing puzzle. For years, a lot of doctors started patients on a big 10 milligram loading dose of warfarin to get that INR up fast. It was just the way it was done. But some researchers started to scratch their heads and question that conventional wisdom. They asked a really simple question. What if we're trying too hard, too fast? Is that big 10 milligram dose actually better, or could a more cautious 5 milligram start be the smarter way to go? So they set up a direct head-to-head comparison. They took 49 patients and randomly split them into two groups. Group A got the aggressive 10 milligram loading dose. Group B got the more cautious 5 milligram dose. Then, for 5 days, the researchers just tracked their blood work, watching closely to see which approach could safely and effectively get them into that target INR. And the results were honestly shocking. They didn't just suggest a slightly better method, they completely flipped the old wisdom on its head. This was a classic case of proving that when it comes to medicine, bigger isn't always better. The first signs of trouble showed up really quick. After just 36 hours, nearly half, 44% of the patients on that big 10 milligram dose had already overshot the target. Their blood was too thin, putting them at risk. Now compare that to the 5 milligram group, where only 8% had the same issue. Right away, the aggressive approach was looking pretty reckless. But by the 60-hour mark, oh man, the difference was staggering. Over a third of the 10 milligram group were now in a dangerously over-thinned state. And the 5 milligram group? 0. Not a single patient went too high. The smaller, cautious dose wasn't just a little better, it was perfectly safe. It completely avoided that dangerous overshoot that plagued the other group. So what the heck was going on here? Well, the researchers uncovered this bizarre paradox. See, warfarin doesn't just block your body's ability to clot, it also knocks out one of your body's natural anti-clotting protectors, something called protein C. That big 10 milligram dose wiped out this protector so fast that for a little while it could actually make the blood more likely to clot. It was like flooring the accelerator and slamming on the brake at the exact same time, just a chaotic and dangerous way to start. The evidence was so clear that the study's own conclusion left absolutely no room for doubt. They wrote, a 5 milligram loading dose of warfarin produces less excess anticoagulation than does a 10 milligram loading dose. In the world of medical research, that's about as definitive a statement as you can get. It's a mic drop. So the implications here are just huge. This study proved that in medicine, bigger isn't better, smarter is better. It showed that a more patient, controlled start was actually the safer and more effective path. But I think most importantly, it's a powerful reminder that we should always be questioning how it's always been done, because that kind of questioning is what pushes medicine forward and ultimately what keeps patients safe. And this leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. This study changed medical practice back in 1997. It really makes you wonder, what widely accepted medical practices of today are being put under the microscope right now in some clinical trial? And which of those things will we look back on in 20 years and say, can you believe we ever used to do that?